Tor. Okay, so it's 4 and a red for a 2/2 flanking. And if Tor attacks, all attacking creatures with flanking get +1/+1 until end of turn. Yeah, it's a bad card all around. It's very high mana cost for just a small creature. Only works when it's attacking. There's other lords for other tribes, creature types that are better than this, so not good at all. Firestorm Hellkite, 4, a blue and a red for a 6/6 flying trample, but it comes with cumulative upkeep, 1 red, 1 blue. Not good at all. I mean, it's a fair, okay rate for a 6/6 creature with flying and trample for 6 mana, but it's just a creature. It's not going to do much. I mean, and then you got to pay the cumulative upkeep. There's better things you can be doing with mana. Energy Vortex, 3 and 2 blue. It's an enchantment. When you play the Vortex, choose an opponent, so it only works against one person. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove all the energy counters on Energy Vortex. During the opponent's upkeep, they choose whether they want to pay 1 for each energy counter on the Energy Vortex, or it deals 3 damage to them. And then you pay X to put energy counters on it, and you can only do it during your upkeep. It's convoluted, a bad card, really bad way just to deal 3 damage to your opponent. Not good at all. Brandeville Omen, 3 and a red, enchant a creature. Cumulative upkeep is 1 red. Target creature's controller cannot cast summon spells, so they can't cast any creatures. This is actually a really good card. I mean, stopping your opponent from casting creatures if their main gameplay is trying to cast creatures works pretty well. It's got a cumulative upkeep, so you won't be able to keep it in play forever unless you can generate infinite mana. It's a fair card, pretty good. It's got some demand, but not much, so it's a middling reserve list card. Ritual of Subdual, 4 and 2 green enchantment. Cumulative upkeep of 2. All mana producing lands produce colorless instead of their normal mana. Pretty strong card. It's a hoser. It's going to stop your opponent probably from playing anything while it's in play, because colored requirements are getting shut out. If they're just playing colorless artifacts, they can still get around it. It's an enchantment, so it can be removed. It costs a lot of mana, so it's not something you can put down early in the game. But it can be a kind of a soft lock later, where you can just go a few turns shutting your opponents out while you've got onboard advantages. It's not the worst card, but it's marginal. It's okay. Aeopile, 2 mana artifact. Pay 1, tap, sacrifice it to have it deal 2 damage to any target. Was great in the day, colorless source of damage, so stuff that prevents damage from certain colors, protection from red. Use the Aeopile, it's not red, so it would deal the damage. These days it's not really much of a much, so probably not worth buying in. Velt, it's another one of these Ice Age depletion lands. It's mediocre, nothing special, probably not worth cornering. Earthlink, 3, black, red and a green. 6 mana enchantment, okay. During your upkeep, you pay 2 mana or destroy Earthlink. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard from play, that creature's controller sacrifices a land. Ignore the effect if the player controls no lands. Okay, so it's pretty strong. I mean, while it's in play, if people lose their creature, they sacrifice a land. Don't see anyone trying to work around it. There's probably not many cards that enhance the effect or make it really strong, but I'm sure in time the card gets broken and it gets picked up. Snowblind, 3 and a green, so 4 mana, enchant creature. Target creature gets minus X. When that creature attacks, X is equal to the number of snow-covered lands the defending player controls. At other times, X is equal to the number of snow-covered lands its controller controls. If this reduces a creature's toughness to less than 1, that creature's toughness is 1, so it can't kill the creature by having 0 toughness due to the Snowblind. It's not really that strong of a card. Most of the control is back in the creature owner's space, so pretty weak, not worth anything. Aeson Crusader, 2 and 2 white for a 2/2. So this creature's power and toughness is equal to 2 plus the number of soldiers and warriors you control. So it's okay. It can be slightly larger creature depending on what you have on the board, but it's just a big creature then. Really, it doesn't have anything other than combat stats, so unlikely to ever be worth anything. Floodwater Dam, 3 mana. Pay double X and 1 mana, tap it, and you can tap X target lands. So 3 mana to tap a single land, 5 mana to tap 2 lands. It's okay. Tapping somebody else's lands doesn't really pull the rug under them much, but it could be the difference between setting up your next turn where your opponent will be tapped out and unable to respond. So it's an okay card, probably a bit too mana intensive to be really strong, but it's pretty unique of an effect, so it has something going for it. Narwhal, 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2. First strike, protection from red. They're not super relevant stats. No one's really trying to play these kind of creatures in any format anymore, so they don't really have much value. Morinfen, 3 and 2 black for a 5/4 flying, cumulative upkeep 1 life. So similar to the creature earlier, it's just a cumulative upkeep on a big creature. It's really just trying to play the combat game, which isn't super strong in any format anymore. Purage Vergborg, 3 and 2 black for a 2/3. So 5 mana for a 2/3 is pretty bad. It gets first strike, but only when attacking. And you can pay 1 black to put a +1/+1 counter on it. But you use that ability only when a black spell is cast, and only once for each black spell cast. So once again, a wafty kind of ability that's okay, but probably not worth the 5 mana initial cost. Probably not that good, not worth it to spec on. Bazaar of Wonders, 3 and 2 blue for an enchantment. When Bazaar of Wonders comes into play, remove all cards in all graveyards from the game. Whenever a spell is played, counter it if a card with the same name is in play or in any graveyard. Okay, it's a pretty strong effect, but it comes at a very high initial mana cost. Then you're going to maintain the enchantment in play, and the residual effect is just stopping somebody who's forgotten that it's in play and plays a spell, and oh no, there's another card with the same name in play or in the graveyard. Obviously you can set it up so that somebody might play a spell thinking that there's not one in play or in the graveyard, and then you flash it in, or instant spell, cast it goes to the graveyard first, the other person's spell gets counted. So there's a few things you can do with it. It's got a pretty strong effect, but it's not part of any combo, it's not part of any strategy at this time, so it's got no chance of being a premium card. Teferi Zimp, 2 and a blue for a 1/1 flying, phasing. When it phases out, choose and discard a card. When it phases in, draw a card. So the discard draw is okay, and you get it going every second turn, but it's not really something that you rely on. So probably not the best card. Raise a Pendulum, 4 mana artifact. At the end of each player's turn, if that player has 5 or less life, Raise a Pendulum deals 2 damage to that player. It's okay. It looks like it's a great way to finish them. You know, you just play this, and then once they're down 5 life, you don't really have to win it anymore. It's just inevitable, but in reality, it's a very weak card. It's not going to do anything if they're above 5 life, so... Chromatic Armor. 1, a white, and a blue for a creature aura. When it comes into play, you put a counter on it, and you choose a colour, and any damage dealt to the creature by source of that colour is reduced to 0, so it's only affecting damage. And then you can pay X to put another counter on it, and choose a new colour, and X is equal to the number of counters on it, so it gets more expensive every time you switch the colour. But it's got some usage, but since it's a pretty weak card in general, it's never going to really be worth much. Thalon's Curse, 2 green, enchantment. Blue creatures do not untap as normal during the untap step. During the untap step, the blue creature's controller can pay 1 blue mana to untap it. Each creature needs to be paid for, and then it can only be done once a turn for each creature. So yeah, it's a fairly good anti-blue hoser, but it's not preventing them from really getting into the game. They can still pay the mana and just keep going as usual. It's a pretty weak card, so, and it's the kind of effect that they can just rebadge on a different card, so it's not really worth anything in terms of just because it's on the reserve list. Mammoth Harness, 3 and a green for an enchant creature, another aura. The creature loses flying. If any creature is assigned to block that creature that the Mammoth Harness enchants, that creature gains first strike until end of turn. So it just makes the creature worse. But that's just bad play. I mean, you can just deal with the creature. Why do you need to fiddle around with it? It doesn't really stop them from using that creature in any other way. So it's a bad card all around. Not worth anything. Xanthic Statue, 8 mana artifact. Pay 5 until end of turn. The statue is an 8/8 artifact creature with trample. So it's just another bad card. 8 for a 8/8 is average. Paying 8 and then having to spend 5 just to make it a creature for 1 turn. That's pretty bad. That's getting even worse. And then it's just an 8/8 creature with trample. Big creatures aren't anything special anymore, so it's just a bad card. Zillion Sword, 3 mana artifact. Pay 3, tap it. Target creature gets +2/+0 as long as the sword remains tapped, and you can choose not to untap the sword. So this is an early version of equipment. It's crap. There's better stuff now. It's no use to play it. Jabari's Influence, 3 and 2 white instant. Play only after combat. Gain control of target non-artifact non-black creature that attacked you this turn, and put a -1/-0 counter on it. So not actually a bad card in itself. As long as it's not a black creature or an artifact creature, you can just gain control of it, but it has to have attacked you. So there's a bit of tension there, but it's a bit overcosted for a gain control kind of spell. But white doesn't get that effect, so you can say this is the kind of cost that it has to be. It's a pretty good card, but it's just gaining control of creatures that attacked you is sort of not really the kind of gameplay that's winning games these days. Chain Stasis, 1 blue, instant. Tap or untap target creature. Whenever any player uses Chain Stasis to tap or untap a creature, that creature's controller may pay 2 and 1 blue to use Chain Stasis to tap or untap another target creature. So this is a pretty good spell. It's the sort of thing that has a few things going on, but it's just not broken. It's not used in any way that sort of wins the game or gives you a massive advantage, so it's perceived as, you know, weak. And that's probably why its value will just be middling around until something else comes along that it works really well with. So it's just an average card at this time.